After 8 long years of service, your 2017 Nintendo Switch is finally about to hit retirement age. The thing has had an absolutely spectacular run, to say the least. It completely changed the way we play video games forever by popularizing on-the-go home console tier video games, paving the way for the absolutely flourishing handheld market at the minute, and has also become known for having one of the most stacked video game libraries of any console ever. This thing has had an absolutely legendary 8-year-long run, but it is 8 years old now, and in the past 2 years or so has really been starting to show its age. I really do appreciate just how much time Nintendo has gotten out of this console, and just how many great games they've managed to put on this thing despite the console being completely underpowered and ancient at this point. But for the past year, everyone really has just been itching for new hardware. So Nintendo, after a couple leaks, the entire console along with most of its new features leaking, finally obliged. Man, the Nintendo Switch being a last-gen console feels really surreal to me. That's Nintendo Switch 2, folks. No big game-changing innovation this time. It's the same thing, but bigger, built better, and with more power. Good. That is exactly what it needed to be, and I cannot imagine not thinking that. With the original Switch, Nintendo didn't just trial and error their way into a winning formula. They trialed and errored their way into the winning formula. Suddenly, their two segmented home and handheld console platforms were merged into one absolute behemoth that felt like we were basically getting a new game every month for more or less the entire console's lifespan. Nintendo would be absolutely stupid to ditch this formula after only one console generation. Whenever I've thought about a next-gen Nintendo console during the Switch's lifespan, you know, before the actual Switch 2 reveal and stuff, my mindset was always, if I can't play it on the toilet, I'm not buying it. And man, this Switch 2 is looking like a pretty good toilet machine. So I'm interested. It's on my radar. I think what I and most Nintendo Switch users wanted out of a Nintendo Switch successor was another handheld that can play more games. That's exactly what it is, so I and most people are pretty happy with this outcome. Also, all of the people who are looking at this iterative next-gen console upgrade and saying, "What happened to the Nintendo I knew?" I think have been looking at Nintendo's company history with their eyes closed. This is the company that followed up the Game Boy with 2 other Game Boys, the company that followed up the DS with another DS, and the company whose second console ever was literally just the NES 2. They have an absolutely legendary console format here, and abandoning it after only one generation would be crazy. Can you tell I'm happy with the overall direction Nintendo's hardware is heading in for the next generation? There's a rumor going around that using IR cameras and some techie thing like that, that the Joy-Cons on this new Switch are also going to be able to double as mice. Which, if true, is so goddamn cool, man. I don't think Nintendo deserves all the credit for that innovation if that does happen, because the Lenovo Legion Go did this in 2023. But Nintendo popularizing this idea in a mainstream general audience's game console that doesn't cost a kidney to buy would be massively good for the industry. So that's a rumor I'm personally really hoping ends up being true. Also, whilst it was omitted from the actual reveal trailer itself, the Nintendo Switch 2 seems to be getting a new button, which all of the leaked models of these consoles has labeled as a C button. My personal massive pipe dream hope for this button is that C stands for chat, and that this button will bring up a social menu that allows me to message people, invite friends to my games, and have voice chats with them on the Switch hardware itself. I understand this might be a very far out desire to have because Nintendo has always been very iffy on giving people the freedom to do this, and it is understandable because their platforms are largely directed at kids. But loads of kids are also on Xbox and PlayStation. The solution for this isn't completely removing social features outright, it's moderating your platform. Online social features like party chat and game invites and stuff has always been an area in which the Switch especially completely failed to catch up to the times. I mean, the Xbox 360 in 2006 had all of the features I'm asking for here. I really don't think asking a console that released 19 years after the 360 to have its level of social features is an unreasonable ask. And here's a part of the video that might be pretty controversial. I'm quite worried about the Nintendo Switch 2's backwards compatibility. The backwards compatibility itself is a confirmed feature for the console, which is great and what I was asking for, but what I'm noticing about this slide is that nowhere in it are performance improvements for the backwards compatible games mentioned. This is making me kind of suspicious. I know that they've said that they're going to be sharing details about this on the Nintendo website at a later date. And if they say, oh yeah, all of your games are getting performance improvements for free, that's fine. Good. Nice.
That's what we've been waiting for!
But I'm starting to get a little suspicious. Let me make this absolutely clear. Anything less than having every first-party Nintendo Switch 1 game playable at 60 FPS and at least 800p on handheld, day one at no added charge, will be a failure in my eyes. When the Xbox Series X came out, all of the backwards compatible first-party Xbox games, and even third-party Xbox games, received retroactive, free of charge performance and resolution upgrades. Xbox set the industry standard here. During the Series X generation, they have gotten very little right, but this is one thing they have absolutely nailed. And the bare minimum is Nintendo following suit. My personal doomsday scenario here is that the most performance upgrades you'll see without shelling out any money is Zelda going from an unstable 30 FPS on Switch 1 to a stable 30 FPS on Switch 2. I'm kinda worried these games will perform more or less the same. And that if you want to play these games in 60 FPS at better resolutions, you're gonna have to shell out money. And in this doomsday scenario, just go with me here, I think they're either going to charge for this by either A, charging £5 to £10 for patches for these games that improve them, or B, they're just gonna sell full-on remasters for the games. And they'll drip feed them as well. They'll drip feed them for Nintendo Direct hype moments. I guarantee it, man. You know, like they did for the retro games on the Switch 1, which realistically should have all been on the console on day one. And now, you can play The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom game at the best performance it's ever ran at, releasing in May of 2027. Yeah, like, man, I'm sorry, you already charged us $70 for the Switch 1 version of Tears of the Kingdom. I am not paying for it to run like a modern AAA game. Maybe I'm wrong here, I really hope I am wrong here, but if the Switch 1 generation has taught me anything about Nintendo, it's that they love nickel and diming you, and that they love drip feeding stuff that should have been on the console on release day for hype moments. I am really worried they're going to pull something like this. But hey, I could be wrong, and I really hope I am wrong about that, because that would be a nightmare scenario that only Nintendo could concoct. If we get to that April 2024 Switch 2 Direct and they say, oh yeah, every game's running at 60 FPS free of charge, I will breathe the fattest sigh of relief. But I've got my suspicions, man, and I really hope they're wrong. And whilst we're on the topic of visuals and stuff, we should talk about the new Mario Kart game. Finally, after 11 years and 2 console generations, Mario Kart is back, and it's really not that much of a technical leap over the Wii U game that released in 2014, is it? Now, what I'm not saying is that this is some really bad, doomed to fail, terrible video game or anything like that, because it's way too early to say that about a game that we have literally seen about 10 seconds of. And visually, there's a lot of stuff I really love here. The new Wonder-styled character models are absolutely gorgeous and are basically exactly what I'd want out of a new Mario Kart game. The animation work is really good. But man, Mario Kart 8 had some of the most beautiful lighting and reflection work I think I've ever seen in any of Nintendo's games. That game, for a 2014 Wii U game, absolutely transcended its hardware, and to this day is still graphically impressive to me. Mario Kart 9, or whatever this game is going to end up being, doesn't really seem to hold a candle to that for me. Lighting and reflection wise, I would say it looks incredibly similar to one of the later, pretty good looking Booster Course Pass stages. So it's not like this is some ugly, disgusting game or anything. But it just doesn't feel on par with base game Mario Kart 8 to me, let alone feeling like a technical jump over it. When I've told this to people, I have been hit with, oh well, it's a low resolution preview, you can't really expect that much from it. But like, that's not really how it works. Making the picture smaller doesn't remove the lighting work. Let me again clarify, I'm not saying this is some disgusting, ugly, doomed, terrible video game or anything like that. It's way too early to make that kind of assessment. But for a game that we waited 11 years and 2 console generations for, this first impression wasn't really all that impressive to me. Like, yeah, maybe we'll get a more visually impressive look at the game in the April Nintendo Direct, but for the reveal of the console, I really feel like they should have put their best foot forward to give us a little taste of what it's capable of. Let me just make sure it's absolutely clear, though, that I absolutely love these new Wonder-inspired character models. These are gorgeous, man. I love them. I love them! And it will definitely still be a fun game, especially with the 24-player races, which I do find really cool. Like, it's a Mario Kart game, man. It's definitely gonna be a fun time. All of these are. But with an 11-year gap between games and 2 console generations, I'm feeling a little underwhelmed so far, and I'm kind of hoping that the next showing of this game will be a lot more impressive. Okay, with all of that Mario Kart complaining out of the way, new Mario Kart! Overall, the Switch 2 is a console that I do definitely have concerns about, but is one that I am pretty excited for nonetheless. It's the follow-up to my favorite console of all time, man. It's pretty hard not to be. Just the premise of a Switch that's way more technically up to date and can run more demanding games is such a no-brainer sell for me. And I know that even if the console launches day one with only Mario Kart 9, and that ends up being a game I'm not too impressed with, I know there will inevitably be a really impressive game I will want the console for. Most likely it's gonna be 3D Mario, because we haven't seen one of them in almost a decade. Nintendo over these past 8 years has been on an absolutely generational run in releasing banger after banger after banger video game. And I see no reason why moving to the new console would slow that momentum down. Despite all of my concerns I listed in this video, I am excited for the Switch 2.